The Galactic Council Hall was immense, stretching as far as the eye could see, with walls made of reflective metal that shimmered with colors no human could name. Hundreds of representatives from hundreds of worlds sat around the massive circular table. Their eyes were fixed on the empty seat that had once belonged to humanity. For the first time in centuries, it remained empty. Ambassador Laura Green walked slowly through the hall. Her long, dark coat brushed against the polished floor, and she could feel the eyes of dozens of alien species on her. She was calm, almost too calm. Some might have called it cold. Some might have called it brave. She herself felt only one thing, resolved out at the front of the chamber, the council chair. A tall, thin creature with translucent skin and glowing eyes spoke in a voice that seemed to echo in every corner of the room. "We have reached a decision," it said. "Humanity has shown itself unwilling to follow the regulations set by this council. We cannot allow such unpredictability to continue. Therefore, effective immediately, humanity will lose its seat at the council." A ripple of chatter went through the room. Not loud, but enough to make the tension thick. Many species whispered to each other, their words like the hiss of steam escaping a valve. They were not sure what this would mean. Some were excited, thinking humans might finally be weakened. Others looked worried, their antennae trembling or their tentacles curling tightly. Laura stepped forward and spoke, her voice steady and clear. "I understand the council's decision, but know this, humans are not gone. We may not sit at this table, but that does not mean we will disappear or forget. When humans walk away, the universe watches. And the universe should be very careful about underestimating us." There was a pause. A long pause. Even the chair seemed momentarily still. Some members of the council shifted in their seats, not used to such direct speech from a human. Humans had always been clever and stubborn, but rarely had they been so blunt. One of the council members, a creature named Illith from the world of Verdun Prime, leaned forward. Its three eyes glowed brighter. "Ambassador Green," it said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal, "are you threatening this council?" Laura shook her head slowly. "I am not threatening. I am stating a fact. Humans do not require approval from the council to exist, to grow, or to protect ourselves. You may hope we are gone from this room, but humanity does not vanish because a few voices decide to remove us from a chair." Another council member, a floating intelligence known only as Fine, emitted a low hum that the translators turned into words. "Then you admit that your kind will ignore council rules?" "I admit nothing except that humans will act in our own best interest," Laura replied. Her hands were folded calmly in front of her, but her mind raced with every plan, every possibility that had been prepared over the past months. She had spent countless nights imagining this exact moment. Not the discussion, not the debate, but the calm and final walk away. The council chair cleared its throat. "This is highly irregular. Never before has a species left the council in such defiance." Laura smiled faintly. It was not a smile of joy, but one of quiet satisfaction. "Perhaps you will remember it, then. Humans are not afraid to walk away from a situation we cannot control. You might think this is defiance, but it is discipline. You might think this is arrogance, but it is clarity. Sometimes the best way to be heard is to leave the room." Some members looked uneasy. Others, like Fine, pulsed in confusion. The room, which had been filled with low murmurs, was now silent. Every eye, every sense, every method of perception was fixed on the lone human standing in the center of the room. Laura took a deep breath. She had rehearsed every word, every step, every gesture, and now it was time for the final act. She turned slowly and began walking toward the exit. The floor beneath her seemed to hum slightly, perhaps sensing her determination. She did not look back. She did not glance at the council. She simply walked. And as she did, the murmurs returned, louder this time. "They cannot do this," whispered a small, lizard-like delegate from the world of Kryn, humans. "They are dangerous," said another, its voice a vibration felt in the floor rather than heard. "They always are," said a third, with what could almost be called audate. Laura reached the doors. They were massive, shaped like an arch and glowing faintly with energy. She placed her hand on the smooth surface, and the doors slid open without a sound. A beam of sunlight from the council's artificial sky fell across her face, behind her. The room seemed to hold its breath. There were no cheers, no applause. Only the quiet knowledge that something monumental had just happened. Humans had walked away from the table, and every species in the hall knew, deep in their instincts, that this was not a threat. They knew it was a statement of power. Outside the council hall, the city of Viltrax stretched in every direction. Flying vehicles zipped between towers that reached hundreds of meters into the sky. Citizens of dozens of species moved about, unaware of the drama that had just unfolded within the council chamber. But for the humans who had come with Laura, the streets were alive with a different kind of energy, pride, relief. The weight of centuries of restraint had been lifted. Captain John Carter, waiting near the hovercraft that would take Laura to her ship, saw her step out and nodded. "Well," he said, his voice low, "they'll be talking about this for a long time." Laura glanced at him, her eyes calm but sharp. "They should be. Humans are no longer negotiating from the inside. From now on, we decide the terms." John looked around at the human crew, all of them standing with quiet confidence. None of them looked afraid. Some smiled faintly. Some just stared into the distance, thinking of the worlds they had defended, the colonies they had built, and the long history of being underestimated. It was not pride in the way other species might show pride. It was something quieter, something deeper. Humans had always been underestimated, always considered too weak or too emotional or too chaotic to be trusted with real power. And yet, here they were, walking away from a table that had once been the center of interstellar politics, and doing so with the calm certainty of those who had survived every challenge thrown at them. The hovercraft lifted smoothly into the air. Laura and her team watched the city shrink below them as they made their way toward the horizon. The council hall, the enormous city, even the fleets of ships that had surrounded Viltrax, all of it seemed distant now. The universe had watched humanity leave, and the ripples were already spreading. Back in the council hall, chaos quietly began. Some species demanded immediate action. Others whispered about preparing their defenses, certain that humans had already anticipated every possible move they might make. The council chair banged its gavel, but the sound felt hollow. The power of the humans had already been demonstrated without a single weapon being drawn. Laura sat in the pilot's seat of her ship, looking at the stars stretched out before her. They were infinite, and yet familiar. Every star could be a new world. Every world could be a colony. And now, without the constraints of the council, humanity could move freely, quietly, and with purpose. "Where to first?" John asked, breaking the silence. Laura smiled faintly. "Home," she said. "We have work to do." The human ship slipped through the atmosphere and into the stars. It moved with ease, confident, unafraid. Somewhere, in the depths of the galaxy, a few council members whispered about what this might mean. And somewhere, among the humans, a quiet certainty settled in. The universe had watched humanity walk away from the table, and now it had no choice but to watch what came next. For the first time in a long time, humans were free to act on their own terms. And when humans acted on their own terms, the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and humanity was ready. The human ship drifted through the silent void of space, moving faster than any council ship could hope to follow. Captain John Carter stood near the command panel, his hands resting lightly on the controls. He glanced at Laura Green, who was seated calmly, staring out at the stars with a quiet intensity. "They're going to panic," John said, his voice low. "You think the council really expected us to just sit there?" Laura did not answer immediately. She had thought about this exact moment for weeks, imagining every possible reaction. "They did not expect this," she said finally. "They thought humans could be pushed, controlled, or silenced. They do not understand that walking away is not weakness. It is power." John nodded slowly. "I can see that now. But still, they will try to guess what we will do next." Laura's eyes met his. "Let them guess. Humans have always prepared for every possibility, even when no one else believes we can. And now, no one else can order us to stop." Below them, in the central hole of the ship, the rest of the crew moved quietly, checking systems and equipment. Engineers were inspecting the engines, while communications officers ran simulations of every known council network. Everyone was calm, efficient. No one spoke loudly, no one panicked. Humans had always been like this under pressure. They did not shout or tremble. They planned, they acted, and they survived outside. Sensors detected fleets from several nearby systems moving nervously. Ships from Verdun Prime, Kryn, and other allied worlds had shifted position, some even retreating to safer orbits. The Council had not yet realized the full consequences of humanity's departure. But the signs were already clear. Fear was spreading. "Look at that," said a young officer named Rachel, pointing to the holographic display. Tiny lights blinked across the map, representing ships. "They are already repositioning. We haven't done anything, and they are already reacting as if we are attacking." Laura leaned forward to study the display. "Let them react. The galaxy is learning the first lesson. Humans do not need to threaten to be dangerous." John frowned. "You really think they understand that? Or do they just think we are preparing for war?" Laura's smile was small and controlled. "Let them think what they want. Our mission is not war. Our mission is readiness. We will defend ourselves, but we will not strike unless absolutely necessary. That is the real power they do not see for ours." The human ship traveled through the edge of Council space. Reports came in from scouts that small colonies were monitoring the humans, sending anxious messages that were carefully ignored. The humans were no longer diplomats, no longer negotiators. They were observers, calculating and precise. A force that moved silently and deliberately through the galaxy. Meanwhile, back in the Council chambers, panic quietly began to grow. The absence of humans was more noticeable than anyone expected. Some species whispered that perhaps humanity had left entirely, retreating to their home systems. Others feared the worst, that humans had begun preparing weapons the Council could not match. The Council chair tried to speak again, but the words felt thin, powerless. "We must send an envoy to understand their intentions," it said. Some members agreed, but others shook their heads. The largest fleets were already in motion, responding to rumors rather than fact. The fear was spreading faster than any message could. On the human ship, Laura and John discussed their next steps. "We have the advantage," Laura said. "We control our own movements. We know their fleets. They do not know ours." "That is more than enough," John nodded. "Still, it is strange. I have never seen the galaxy so tense. Even with all our drills, all our history, this feels different. They are afraid in a way we've never seen before." Rachel spoke from the console. "It is not just fear. It is uncertainty. They have no idea what humans are capable of. They thought sitting at the Council table gave them control. Now they realize they never did." Laura's face remained calm. "Exactly. And that uncertainty is useful. Not for war, but for understanding. The galaxy must learn that humans cannot be ordered, cannot be controlled, and cannot be underestimated." As the ship moved through deep space, the crew began running simulations of every nearby system. They modeled trade routes, supply chains, and fleet positions. Every variable was calculated and recalculated, 1,000 possibilities in motion at once. Humans had always thrived on preparation. Even when peace seemed guaranteed, they prepared. Even when war seemed impossible, they prepared. In one corner of the ship, young engineer Simon was checking the engines, making small adjustments with quiet confidence. "They'll think we are aggressive," he said, almost to himself. "But really, we are just ready." Maria Hill, the ship's tactical officer, smiled without looking up from her console. "Aggressive is what they will call it. Accurate is what we actually are." Hours passed. The human ship approached a neutral system near the Council's edge. Here, colonies from multiple species had gathered, creating a tense border. Messages were being sent frantically between worlds. Small fleets moved in patterns of caution, unsure whether humans were preparing to defend or attack. Laura instructed John to slow the ship. "We need them to see calm, confidence. That is more dangerous than weapons right now." The ship hovered in the system quietly. Sensors picked up dozens of fleets, all at alert. Some fired warning signals. Some attempted to communicate. Every message from aliens asked the same thing. What is your intention? Why have you left the council? Laura responded carefully. Humans are acting in our own interest. That is all you need to know. We have no intention to attack. We will defend if necessary. Beyond that, you may not understand us, and that is your choice for the first time. Some alien commanders hesitated. Their fleets paused, unsure of how to act. The precision and calm of the humans made them question every assumption they had ever held. The galaxy had always thought humans were emotional, reckless, chaotic. But here, humans were none of those things. Humans were deliberate. Humans were disciplined. Humans were terrifyingly in control. Over the next day, more ships arrived. Some came to observe, some to challenge. Humans made no aggressive moves. They allowed every observation, every approach, every signal. And with each passing hour, the message became clear. Humans were not here to fight, but they were more powerful than anyone imagined. Laura watched the incoming fleets with quiet satisfaction. They are learning, she said. Every move we make teaches them who humans really are. John leaned back in his chair. It feels strange. We've never had to teach anyone fear without fighting. Usually, we just fight and they understand. But this is different, Rachel nodded. It is strategy, not violence. And that makes them fear even more. They do not know how far we are willing to go, or how precise we can be if we need to act. Hours turned into days. The humans remained in position, observing, recording, and preparing. The alien fleets did not attack. They did not communicate further. They watched, and as they watched, whispers spread across the galaxy. Humanity had abandoned the council table, but they had not left the universe. Back in council space, chaos had grown worse. Fleets were repositioned. Diplomats argued. Some species began secret communication with each other, trying to find a united response. But there was no clear plan. The humans had acted first by walking away, and that simple act had created confusion, fear, and uncertainty. Laura finally spoke to the crew, her voice calm and strong. This is only the beginning. The galaxy now knows that humans cannot be ignored. We will continue to move carefully. We will continue to observe. But remember this, we are not here to dominate. We are here to be ourselves. And that is enough to change everything. John smiled faintly. I suppose some lessons are learned without a single shot fired. Exactly, Laura said. And this is just the first lesson. The human ship remained at the edge of the neutral system. Quiet, disciplined, and unthreatened. Around them, alien fleets shifted nervously. Across the galaxy, whispers spread from system to system. Humans had left the council table. They had done so without anger, without fear, without haste. And the universe watched, uncertain, worried, and for the first time, respectful. The night stretched across space, stars twinkling in endless patterns. The humans on board felt the weight of history and the promise of the future. They were no longer diplomats, no longer constrained by council rules. They were ready. The galaxy would not forget this day. Humans had walked away, and every species had learned that the quietest humans could be the most dangerous. Not because they wanted war, but because they were prepared, they were precise, and they could act when needed. And humanity, calm and deliberate, drifted quietly through the stars, waiting for the right moment to return not to the council, but to the universe that had long underestimated them. The stars stretched endlessly before the human ship as it moved silently through the dark space. At the edge of known territories, Captain John Carter sat at the command panel, his eyes scanning readings and signals from distant worlds. Next to him, Ambassador Laura Green leaned forward, watching the sensor displays with quiet intensity. They are watching us, John said, his voice low. Every system we pass seems to have fleets or patrols looking our way, Laura nodded. They are curious and afraid. They do not know what humans will do next, and that fear spreads faster than any fleet. The ship drifted closer to the outer frontier, a region of space that humans had long avoided in the past. Hidden there were the deep frontier stations, silent. Massive constructs built decades ago during humanity's wars of survival. Most species believed. They were long decommissioned. Only humans knew the truth. Maria Hill, the tactical officer, studied the navigation chart. Sensors show the stations are still operational. They're silent, but alive. We could bring them online quickly. John leaned back in his chair. Are we ready for that? If the council sees them, they'll panic. Laura's eyes glinted. Exactly. That is the point. We do not want war. We want the galaxy to understand that humans have always been ready. Silence can be more powerful. Then noise. The ship reached the coordinates of the first deep frontier station. It floated like a dark shadow against the stars, massive and imposing. Its surface was covered in panels and antennas that shimmered faintly when scanned. Humans had built it during a time when they feared attacks from every direction, and now, decades later, it was a reminder that humanity had always prepared for the impossible. John activated the station's main systems. Lights blinked across its hull, and communication relays hummed softly. The station's scanners swept across nearby space, silently observing every fleet and colony in the sector. Look at that, Maria said, pointing at the display. They are adjusting their positions already, even before we do anything. The fleets nearby are reacting. Laura smiled faintly. Fear is learning. Let them adjust. Let them wonder what is happening. That uncertainty is our ally. The stations. Long-range sensors detected ships from the Council moving in patterns of caution. Some were trying to approach, others retreating. No one fired. No one dared. Humans had not made a move, but their presence alone had already changed the behavior of entire fleets. Rachel, one of the communications officers, tapped her console. Incoming message from a Krynian scout fleet. They're asking why the station is online. They're asking if humans intend to attack. Laura shook her head calmly. Tell them we are defending ourselves, nothing more. We do not strike unless we must. Let them know that humans prepare, but do not provoke. That is the lesson they need to learn. The message was sent, and the Krynian fleet immediately paused, unsure how to respond. Round the galaxy, similar reports were arriving from other patrols. Every system that once underestimated humans now watched carefully. Activate the second station. Laura said. The ship moved to the next set of coordinates. Another deep frontier station came into view, larger and older than the first. Its hull bore the marks of past conflicts, but its systems were still intact. Humans had built these stations not just for defense, but as deterrents, and now, decades later, the galaxy would see their true purpose. John initiated the startup sequence. Panels lit up, sensors hummed, and long-range communication arrays came online. Within moments, the station was fully functional. Maria observed the sensor readouts. Look at the fleets. They are moving away. Some are sending messages of caution. They're not attacking, but they're clearly worried. Laura's eyes were steady. Exactly what we wanted. They do not know our strength, yet they respect it already. This is a demonstration of human discipline, not aggression. The human ship continued through the frontier, activating station after station. Each activation caused ripple effects across nearby systems. Fleets shifted positions. Colonies sent anxious messages to their leaders. Every council member who had once dismissed humanity now began to see a pattern. Humans had always been prepared for anything, and that preparation was still very real. Hours turned into days as the ship moved silently from station to station. Each time a station came online, the effect was immediate. Alien commanders reported strange readings. Power levels that should have been impossible, systems that seemed more advanced than expected, and fleets that could appear anywhere at a moment's notice. John frowned as he studied one report. They don't know what to do. They are trying to calculate our intentions, but they have no data to work from. Laura nodded. That is the point. Humans do not have to attack to show strength. Discipline and preparation are enough. They fear what they cannot predict, and we are showing them exactly that. Rachel looked up from her console. It's working. Every fleet we detect is moving cautiously. Some are even retreating from positions they've held for decades. Maria smiled faintly, and they think it is aggression. But all we are doing is turning on old stations. That is the difference. Humans do not need to strike first to be feared. The human crew worked tirelessly, coordinating activation sequences, monitoring fleets, and adjusting positions. They did not rush. They did not panic. Every action was precise, controlled, and deliberate. On the surface of a nearby council planet, leaders watched the reports come in. Screens displayed sensor readings and fleet movements. Council members argued, shouting at each other in their own languages, but no consensus was reached. The humans had acted first by abandoning the council table, and now by activating frontier stations. They had created uncertainty, fear, and respect all at once. One council member, a being called Vec, paced angrily. They are preparing. We must strike before they gain an advantage. Another, quieter member named Lyra, shook her head. Strike? We cannot. We do not know what humans are capable of. They are not here to negotiate, but they are also not attacking. Any action now could be disastrous. Vec's 3 eyes narrowed. Disaster is already happening. Look at our fleets. They are shifting positions. Colonies are reporting panic. They have disrupted our order without a single shot fired. Back on the human ship, Laura watched the displays. She remained calm, knowing that every council member, every fleet commander, every colony leader was watching and learning a lesson they would not forget. John finally spoke. Do you think they realize how much power humans have? That these stations alone can monitor the entire frontier and respond within hours? Laura shook her head slowly. Some do. Some will never understand. But that does not matter. They only need to respect it. Fear and respect are enough for now. The ship approached the final station in the frontier. It was the largest of them all, nearly 5 times the size of the others, with a surface covered in weapon systems, scanning arrays, and hidden hangars. It had been humanity's last line of defense, and now it would stand as a silent guardian at the edge of the known galaxy. Maria initiated the startup sequence. Lights blinked along the hull. Communication arrays hummed to life. Sensors reached out, scanning entire star systems. Immediately, the effects were clear. Fleets across nearby systems shifted dramatically. Retreating to safer orbits, colonies sent messages of fear, confusion, and respect. The council scrambled to understand what was happening, but the humans were already gone, moving silently between the stations, coordinating and monitoring. Rachel's voice broke the silence. They are terrified. Every fleet in range is unsure what to do. They are guessing, but all their guesses are wrong. Laura nodded. Exactly. Humans prepare. That is what sets us apart. We do not need war to show strength. We do not need aggression to command respect. We act with discipline, precision, and foresight. And now, the galaxy knows that humans have never been weak. John smiled faintly. I've never seen anything like this. They fear us without a single shot fired. That has been impressive. Laura's face was calm, her expression unreadable. That is humanity. We do not need to fight to be powerful. We do not need to threaten to be respected. We are ready, and that is enough. As the ship moved away from the final station, the galaxy began to settle into a new reality. Humans were no longer at the council table. They had activated hidden stations that no other species had ever seen. Entire fleets had adjusted positions. Colonies were in panic, and the council scrambled to understand the new situation. The human ship continued silently, observing, recording, and preparing. The universe had been given a message. Humans were not to be underestimated. Humans did not act without reason, but when they acted, even quietly, the consequences were enormous. And humanity, calm, precise, and ready, drifted through the stars, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would truly understand the depth of their preparation and discipline. The frontier stations blinked silently against the stars, a quiet warning to all who watched. Humans were no longer just a part of the council. Humans were a force in the universe, ready to act if needed, and the galaxy would never forget it.